Let's move over to Framber because I said some words about Framber before the offseason started. Well, actually, exactly when it happened, when he fired a sinker into his catcher's chest protector and then had a not so great reaction right after. And I said, that's going to hurt him. That's going to hurt him in free agency talks. I don't know about how much, but it is going to be something that every GM brings up. And I got a little bit of pushback on that. Might not be that big of a deal. But then, lo and behold, Framber Valdez goes to the GM meetings. One of the only players to do that. I wonder why. He's got to explain to these guys, I'm not that type of guy. It was a lapse in judgment. Now, if he has a good response to these GMs, I'm sure they'll forgive him because the track record speaks for itself. He's pitched in huge moments. He's done well in huge moments. He's been one of the most consistent pitchers in Major League Baseball. He's always one of the tops in ground ball rate. Doesn't walk too many guys. It's not like the stuff has really taken any sort of a step back. Now, again, I would pay Dylan Cease more. I think he has more upside, but I think an argument is here to say that Framber Valdez has a much higher floor than a Dylan Cease because you're not going to see Framber putting up ERAs in the mid fours, which Dylan Cease has done twice, and Framber just doesn't do that. So let's talk about your contract prediction because, again, it's a little rich. It's a little rich, but so I'm always dealing with two different things. When I'm talking about with Arm and Jack, I'm always the guy to go too high on contracts. I'm usually right. Just kidding. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm right. But now with you seem to be giving these guys big, big deals. And I feel like this season is different than others because this season, of course, we're dealing with the impending 2027 lockout. That's why we saw a near record of players sign the qualifying offer. Let me just collect my $20 million now because who knows what's going to happen. They probably saw their market unfolding. Their agents told them, hey, long-term deals might not be in the cards for you. So this offseason is different than others. I think teams are going to be reluctant to give out huge, huge deals. Like Cease, I don't see 210. And Framber, did you say 160?
I said 160 over 5, which is $32 million a year. And I think just building off of that point that you just had, to me, the lockout, and I could be wrong with the way I'm reading it, but I think the lockout, almost similar to how you see all the new rules in the NBA where it impacts the mid-tier, I think that is where the lockout's going to impact this market is sort of the more middle tier, the tier B. I think the top guys still get paid. I think Kyle Tucker still gets paid. I think Cease gets paid, Framber, Bichette. I think these guys are still going to get paid because, especially for big market teams, this, is sort of this last chance to spend without knowing what's coming. And so I think, if you are trying to win now and Framber Valdez is the piece that does it, yeah, I'm going to 32 million per to get a guy that is one of the few aces on this market. And if you really go deeper into my predictions, once we get to like Zach Gallen and Michael King and Ranger Suarez, I'm not quite as bullish. I'm really bullish on Framber and Cease because I think those guys are kind of head and shoulders above the rest in this market when it comes to their durability. With Cease, the upside; with Framber, the floor. And so, yeah, I think he gets 32 million per. It is a lot, but I think he can at least clear 30, especially if it ends up being less than the 5 years. If it's a 4-year deal or a 3-year deal, I think he's for sure to get at least 30. If it gets to 5 years, could it maybe dip a little bit below the 32 million I predicted? Absolutely. I just guess I decided not to be low on any of these guys.
So here's where we separate. And I totally understand where you're coming from, is based on the other starting pitching free agents and looking at years past, the guys at the top of the market tend to get top dollar. And we just keep repeating that cycle. My issue is I don't want to pay Cease or Framber top of the market ace status money because I don't view either of them as a true ace. I view them in a similar bucket as a guy like Carlos Rodon when he originally signed with the Yankees. Because Carlos Rodon, for those few years in San Francisco, was just fantastic. But there were questions. And I think the same way about Cease and Framber, where these two guys can pitch like aces. But the reason you are a true ace is because you're consistently pitching at that level. I don't think Cease is there. And Framber has been more consistent, but it's not that upper echelon, which that's why I would give you $30 million. So Rodon signing for 6 years, 27 per, that's the bucket I view these guys in. So for Framber, I was more 5 years, 135, 5 years, 140. So again, we're kind of splitting hairs here. We both see a 6-7 year deal for Dylan Cease. We both see a 5-year deal for Framber Valdez. It's just about the amount of money. Just seeing 32 million next to Framber's name, knowing that now he is the 6th highest paid pitcher in terms of AAV, it just doesn't sit with me. Will it become truth? We'll just have to wait and see. But I think if a team signs Framber and pays him $32 million a year, I'm going to come on the Just Baseball show the following day and say that's too much money. That's what I'm going to say. And that's just the bottom line of it.
No, I mean, it's fair. It is. Like I said, the 32, and part of it too is, you're writing this article and you're looking at the whole market and everything I want to kind of tie together. To me, if I'm going to predict that Dylan Cease is going to make 30 million per over 7 years, I'm going to give Framber, who I think is a better pitcher for 2026, a better bet to have a really good season in 2026. I'm going to give him a slightly higher AAV if he's getting 2 less years. So that's where I end up taking that AAV over 30. Go ahead.
I disagree.
That's fine.
I think Cease is going to put together, like, I'm looking at Cy Young futures. I mean, it depends. It depends where he goes. But this is a profile that can lead Major League Baseball in strikeouts.
Well, how about this? Framber's coming off the better season rather than projecting forward. Yes. Framber's coming off the better season. So again, if you're looking at who is the best pitcher off the market off of the best season, I think it's Framber. And again, so when I pair those predictions together, that's why I went a little bit above the 30. But let's talk about the landing spots. I had the Blue Jays as a landing spot for Framber Valdez. The other ones we listed on our landing spots article, you had the Mets, the Giants, the Rangers. And again, the Braves snuck in there. And I'll be honest, I think that's a little bit of an editorial mistake. I don't know why we snuck the Braves in there. That was not approved by myself. I don't see the Braves getting in on Framber. But Mets, Blue Jays, Giants, even Rangers to me seems a little bit odd of a landing spot. Because I just
with a division rival. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I have to have a conversation with the editorial team after this, show.
The Rangers got to upgrade their offense. Pitching was not the problem for them last year. Now, of course, they are losing guys, so they will have to sign pitchers. But the Rangers don't feel like the team where you're spending 9 figures on a pitcher when you're already trying to trade away Adolis Garcia and Jonah Heim. I mean, going into next year, of course, you have Wyatt Langford and Corey Seager, but Marcus Semien has to bounce back. But Michael Hellman can't be the 4th option. Like, we got to upgrade this offense. So Framber to them doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But the team that I want to pitch you on is the New York Mets.
All right.
I think he's a perfect pitcher for them. You got a guy who's consistent. You got a guy who's pitching big moments. You got a guy who is relatively cold-blooded outside of course, that one mishap. But generally speaking, that was the only pitch that I didn't see Framber not be cold-blooded. I think he could pitch in New York, keep the ball on the ground, keep the Mets in it. And what do the Mets need? Guys who can eat innings. What does Framber Valdez do every single year? Eat innings. He's got a rubber arm. I just think he's a perfect fit for the Mets.
It makes a lot of sense. It does. For me, doing Locked On Mets and diving to this offseason the way I have, I think the Mets are really primed to get that pitcher through trade. But at the same time, if Skubal doesn't get moved, if Peralta doesn't get moved, if Joe Ryan, the cost is too much, you start to run out of options. And if you look at the free agent market, Framber Valdez is what the Mets need because, yes, they could get Dylan Cease, but now you're adding sort of another question mark into a rotation that's full of them. So I could see Framber going to the Mets. I definitely think it's a good fit. I don't know. To me, Framber doesn't seem like the guy that David Stearns spends all of his money on. But I don't know. I could be wrong
what do
on
you mean
that.
I guess, what do you mean by all of his money?
Well, I more just mean like, I think if David Stearns is going to give out a long-term starting pitching contract, like I think he's waiting for Skubal next year, and he's doing everything he can to trade for Peralta right now. You know, who cares if they say that Peralta's not available? I'm going to give you Brandon Sproat, and I'm going to give you Ryan Clifford or AJ Ewing, and I'm going to take Freddie Peralta for $8 million this year. I'm going to throw the $450 at Skubal, because I certainly don't want to pay this idiot. Ryan predicted a $32 million contract. I'm not paying $32 million a year for Framber. Give me Skubal next year. David Stearns has preached in the past that you want to develop your aces and sort of pay for your position players. I think if he pays for an ace, it's the best ace out there. So that's where I hesitate to think the Mets are going to jump in. But what do you think about that? And then even if you want to go beyond that, about the Blue Jays as a fit?
I think you're right about the Mets. The more I think about it, the Mets are not going to give any of these pitchers a big deal. I don't think they're going to sign any of them, because I think Steve Cohen says last offseason, I went for Juan Soto. This offseason, we're going to use our system. Aram just came out with his top 100, and you probably ran around the room knowing that your Mets have 8 top 100 guys. And I sat on my couch, very pouty, saying that the Yankees have 2. You guys have one of the best farm systems, if not the best farm system in baseball. You have assets everywhere. You can easily trade a few of them in order to bring in Freddie Peralta. And there's your ace, or at least borderline, right? Guy at the top of the rotation. $8 million. Steve Cohen will make that by the time we're done with this episode. Right? You can give that to him easily. All right, Freddie, thanks for the great season. We'll see you on your way. We're preparing for Tarik Skubal. It makes all the sense in the world. Steve Cohen wants to dress his team with the biggest stars in baseball. And you combine Tarik Skubal with Juan Soto, they'll sell tickets for the rest of time. And they'll be so freaking good at the same time. So it makes all the sense in the world. These young guys like Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, maybe you keep them. And by 2027, your rotation is McLean, Skubal, Tong, Sproat, and you can mix in whoever else that you want. And you're firing on all cylinders. I'm sure that's what they're talking about. So I take back my Mets prediction. There's no way they're signing any of these guys the more I think about it. Damn it. And it's going to work. It's going to work.
So what about Toronto for Framber?
I get it. I do. I guess I just look at the rotation. I'm like, is that where they want to spend their money? Because I look at their rotation right now. I see Kevin Gausman at the top. He ain't slowing down. Shane Bieber just came back on a 1-year deal. Said he likes it there. All right, so he's back. Jose Barrios. And I already know I'm forgetting somebody. Who am I forgetting? Trey Savage, duh. You got 4. And now, of course, you can sign a free agent. I just think it would be a bit foolish for them. I think it would be overspending to go to the starting pitching market, especially when I think they're the top team for Kyle Tucker. And that's where they'll be spending their money. So I get it, but I don't like it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for me, I think Gausman's like last year of his deal, if I'm not mistaken. So it would be, this is the guy that's going to replace Gausman. He's going to be the big contract on your books moving forward. And he's the guy
maybe they're in the Skubal bucket next year. Maybe they're thinking along the same lines of, all right, let's say they don't get Kyle Tucker and they load up on bullpen and they say, our team just went to the World Series and took the Dodgers to 7 games. Like, we're still pretty damn good. We just spent $500 million on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We're going to make some smaller moves. We're going to address tiny holes because they really didn't have any. I guess maybe you could say outside of their bullpen, so maybe they go full bore there, and they wait for Skubal. And they're that mystery team. When I said the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Mets and the Blue Jays are after Skubal. So they kind of fit along the same lines, even though I feel like the Mets are a better fit for Skubal just because they have so much freaking money. I could see it, but again, they're not my favorite fit.
One thing for me with the Blue Jays this offseason, I think they're going to enjoy the fact that they have struggled to land the top free agents, and they have never been more attractive in free agents than they are right now. So this might be the time to strike. But I do think first, second, third, fourth priority is trying to land Kyle Tucker. And people can go back and watch the video that me and Jack did last week. I did predict Kyle Tucker to the Blue Jays as well.
I agree with that one.
Should we whoosh and then do some hitters?
Well, so your prediction is Framber to the Blue Jays.
That's my prediction, yes.
What were the other landing spots again?
Again, I only like a couple of these. The Mets and the Giants were the two that I think are realistic of the ones in our landing spots article. So
I do wonder if the Astros just re-sign him.
I just don't know if they're going to pay him to that level. Who knows? Maybe he's out in the market. Maybe it ends up being a lot less, and maybe he does fall back to Houston. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to find landing spots, and I wish we had a couple of other ones in here that we could sink our teeth into. But I honestly am kind of at a loss to find where the other landing spot is for Framber. I mean, the Giants make sense for every reason that we said with C. So it's like that absolutely could be the team.
Could be the Tigers. Right? Maybe it's not Cease. Maybe it's Framber.
Yeah, absolutely.